if Mickey is sort of the cipher of American culture, the middle of American culture, and Mickey is now fleshing out with emotions, one could ask, how will he respond to more contemporary or current events that seemingly are very polarizing? Or does he become the character who was able to pull us all together?
Loved it. Love everything that has to do with Mickey, obviously. But so something that hit me immediately when I was first watching this was that it feels like, since the first two episodes of Mickey failed, it sounded like that the only reason why, Mickey ended up being a success was because the first episode that did really well, the Steamboat Willie, was, it was the first cartoon with sync sound. And that was just remarkable to me. I mean, would Mickey have not been a success if Steamboat Willie wasn't the first cartoon with sync sound?
Animation goes hand in hand with technology. And I think Mickey coming to life and really being a full-fledged character needed an extra boost or an extra push. So, in a crystal ball, and given where things are now, I can say, yes, of course, it had to be sound. But I think if we think practically about it, we get a sense of that high-pitched voice. We get a sense of the sound effects and reinforcing, I think, in a critical, visceral, central way of who Mickey is. And it's that attachment to him, I think, that really launched a success for him.
Let's see, something that I loved, was, how the documentaries look at the past. It was juxtaposed against, the creation of that new Mickey short, where Mickey is walking through the museum. And it was just, really powerful that that's where the documentary started rather than, the actual beginning. Mm-hmm. And so with that in mind, I mean, did the idea of this documentary come about because of this new short, or did it just come out that way? It just seemed perfect.
Yeah, it was kind of serendipitous in the sense that, Eric and myself and a bunch of us were sitting around, and it was kind of, I think, offered up by him of like, hey, if we're doing a Mickey Mouse documentary, why are we not doing any Mickey Mouse short work, any animation? And that really became kind of, in a certain way, the spine to us watching this. It's one thing to talk about the history, and the history, could easily cover even more than 90 minutes, but to have something tangible and, the hand-drawn animation, I always felt like I was as close as I was going to get to Mickey at the tip of Eric's pencil, and to hang out with him and watch him do his thing, and the exuberance that he had, that Mickey has, that hand-drawn animation has, was really phenomenal. I mean, there's no better day than just sitting there and, and listening to his kind of teaching me about Mickey and how it all works. I work in documentaries, so I have a very strange work process. It's nothing compared to hand-drawn animation. Hand-drawn animation is wild the way they pull that stuff off. So that was really cool to see.
And that's actually perfect. I'll go into one of my last questions now then, because it's a perfect segue. Just like, so there was a lot about, I forgot who it was, but they were saying that one of the aspects that makes Mickey is when it's hand drawn, like it has to be hand drawn. And so later on in the documentary, we're watching this and I noticed, that there's no Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Now, I know that obviously there's only so much you can fit in there, but I was wondering if that was on purpose, since he is Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is very different from other Mickey.
Yeah. So you're talking like 90s era Mickey Mouse Clubhouse?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the 3D one. Mm-hmm. The one that when my kids were watching it, it was killing me inside, but
no, I wasn't throwing any elbows or anything. I just, there's only so much you can fit in. I mean, one of my favorite shorts is Runaway Brain. I just think it's so smart and what it's doing. Have you seen this one, Carmenita? It's like,
yes, I have.
Yeah. So, I mean, on a meta level, what it's doing with where Mickey is and how he's not allowed to be an adventurer anymore. It's like how that one didn't make it into the film. It's just a function of, that linear 90-minute the tyranny of the narrative, it's like, it's just, so I think we've got two stills from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, but I hear you, it's like the comic books could have been a whole other thing too.
Well, the Clubhouse also, though, is a really different offshoot of Mickey, right? Think about how he is supposed to be interacting with individuals, when he is interacting with the individuals. There are the older versions of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, where it actually looks like the 50s show, where it's about all the fans coming together and fandom around an idea of Mickey as well. And I think that's an interesting story, but I think it's great, Jeff, that you made that choice, always choices, even if you have only a certain amount of time. It really presents Mickey, I think, in a really unique way, to not have those sort of ancillary sort of moments of contact and interaction with that character.
I hear you say that, because those things do keep you up at night of like, what about this? What about, and everybody sort of has their favorite, and it's like, well, I can't be, luckily there's 500 pounds of amazing books about Walt, about Mickey, about, there is other stuff. So you are not the end all be all. You're just sort of doing your variation, right?
So something else I took from the documentary, and it might just be my personal interpretation, that it seemed like Mickey would initially, seem to undergo change, and it seemed like for the worse almost, due to, public's perception of him. But that, it would eventually become a positive thing. Like the reason why Donald Duck was created was kind of unfortunate, because people wanted Mickey to be perfect, and that led to creating Donald Duck, and he was, a beloved character. So do you think that Mickey's current iteration should change because of the public's perception of him? And I just want to make sure if my question makes sense, just because like the creation of Donald Duck, it did seem like the only reason why he was created was because Mickey couldn't be goofy anymore. Or he couldn't have any faults. So they created another character for that.
The ways in which Mickey is sort of normalized and naturalized into middle class American culture is sort of one of the more fascinating transformations of a popular character that was both a brand, but it had its own identity. And when that flattening happens in the 50s and 60s, and then he kind of disappears for a while, I think something was lost in that moment. A contemporary Mickey, gosh, I wouldn't even know what that would look like. I know that there have been more international presentations of Disney and other shorts that have come out that are recalling sort of the previous aesthetic that's pulling from the 30s and 40s, and you get a more well-rounded character that expresses frustration and can be a little manic, and all those qualities that we can all relate to. I just realized I'm not even sure if I'm answering your question. But just some reflections that I have about parts of the question that you're asking.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of long. Yeah. So I guess the second part was, since it seemed like a lot of what changed Mickey was due to perception of him, like, should Mickey change again because of that? Like based on the public's perception of him?
I think Mickey is bound to the public perception. This is from a scholar's standpoint, bound to public perception. I don't think he's ever been free of it. Once Walt sort of shifts him in the 40s, he is middle-class, middle-brow America, and he exists for the entertainment and joy of middle-class, middle-brow America. So, and now he's a symbol and an icon more than a character at times for us. So I don't think it's possible to decouple those components that you raise. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to somebody who was raised on Mickey in the 80s. I didn't know he was a cartoon character. I thought of him as a nightlight and somebody who greeted me at Disneyland. So for me, a lot of the film was filling in these details where it was like, what? And it made sense why my parents were so excited to take my picture. And I'm not saying this is as a slag on Mickey at all. I liked Mickey, but he was a totally different thing as a kid growing up, And so it, I don't think, once you get to that status, imagine a physical Hollywood icon. It would be hard for him to play a character actor role in this. He's always going, once you chain, it's hard to change back to the everyman,
Right.
If that makes sense. I'm just trying to keep up with Carmenita. You can see why.
I totally agree. Once you achieve that sense of stardom where your identity supersedes narrative and it becomes about a collection of values, it's hard to go back. And I just don't know how Mickey could ever appear any other way now as icon.
I completely
and even
agree
those new Mickey Mouse shorts are playing with Mickey as famous. It's like that one Mickey's Big Premiere or whatever from the 30s, where it's like they're playing off that, but they do that all the time now. So
I guess this is a perfect segue because we talked about a little bit, how like Mickey kind of lost his way for a time, becoming more of a corporate mascot over art and things like that. And which is what initially led to the new shorts of what we have. So since it's been some time, obviously you all might have, your own perception of it, but I was just curious to see, if this new Mickey has accomplished what Disney, set out to do. Cause it seemed like, going back to the heyday of Mickey, of like the Fantasia Mickey, have we gotten there?
In terms of the new shorts?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have an 8-year-old daughter who, for the course of this, has watched every Mickey short. She can watch Boat Builders and a new Mickey short, and then Fantasia, and then it's all Mickey to her. So it's. I will say, from a going forward for young people perspective, I think that the shorts accomplish the job in that he is back to being a character. Now, like Carmenita was saying, that may be his third role, as opposed to, mascot, icon, product, whatever he is now. But in terms of the joy of Mickey as a character, I do think the shorts do that. And, I've seen it in the fact that my daughter loves him, and he can have emotions again. There's a point where Mickey's not really allowed to have any emotions at all. And so he can be inappropriate again. So I do think that points to the fact that, and that was sort of what I was trying to point out at the end, is like, icon aside, merchandise aside, they've at least spun it to him being allowed to be himself again in that format.
So the question becomes then, what is the staying power of that, right? Is this a brief moment or a spell in Mickey's identity? Is this something that we're going to see further? And then who will Mickey need to be in order to be culturally relevant? Because if Mickey is sort of the cipher of American culture, the middle of American culture, and Mickey is now fleshing out with emotions, one could ask, how will he respond to more contemporary or current events that seemingly are very polarizing? Or does he become the character who was able to pull us all together? Who knows? But it's interesting to ask and wonder.
I don't know if I can answer that myself.
Oh, that's even better. So again, the fact that we're having this conversation about a cartoon mouse that was developed in the 1920s says a lot about how he has had an impact on all of us.
Definitely. And I see I got a note saying to wrap this up. So I'll just say that with the new Mickey Mouse, we've kind of created, it's becoming like a tradition now, because there's that Spooktacular episode, the Halloween episode, the special from the Mickey shorts. We now watch that leading up into Halloween, and then also the Donald Duck or something, the Christmas one. We now watch that leading up to Christmas every year. So at least from my perspective, we're all loving the new Mickey and the old Mickey, which is the way it should be.
The way it should be.